Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we are talking about Absolute Green Lantern, a brand new series from DC with this first issue by Al Ewing, who, whether you know him or not, is a fantastic writer. He's been making some of the best stories in comics for years. Perfect writer for this series, and if you're familiar with him at all, you know that there's going to be a lot of intrigue right off the bat where you're just asking questions and curious to see his vision for the character play out, which is very exciting and is exactly the sort of thing that you want for a brand new series, brand new universe in an absolute universe book like this. So just a perfect choice for a writer right off the bat. And just another side note before we get into it here, when I saw this cover, I didn't look closely at it and I just saw the woman on the front, and I automatically assumed that it was going to be kind of an Ultimate Hawkeye thing where it's like, oh, it's not Clint Barton, it's this new character for the alternate universe and it's going to follow like a completely different sort of thing, or like Absolute Flash, you know, it starts with Wally West instead of Barry, but not at all, but also kind of is. So it's kind of weird, but also really interesting, playing with your expectations right off the bat. One of the best things about the Green Lanterns, and also kind of one of the worst things, is that there are so many of them. There are so many human Green Lanterns now that it's hard for the company to use all of them correctly. Interestingly enough, starting off with a brand new series and a brand new universe, Al Ewing kind of uses that to his advantage right off the bat in this book, and you'll see what I mean here in a minute. So this starts off 5 days ago, where Hal Jordan is sitting at a table with Jon Stewart and a woman named Joe, and they're sitting out at a restaurant eating, drinking coffee, and immediately you can kind of see where the differences are just in the basic sense for these new versions of the characters. Someone asks Hal, "Penny for your thoughts?" And he says, "Just keeping an eye on the time, John. There's an online auction that ends at 3. If I play my cards right, I could walk away with a vintage Malibu Mary dream house." And Joe across the table says, "The glamorous life of a toy salesman." And he corrects her, "Collectibles dealer, Joe. Respect the office. And it pays more than designing buildings for a town nobody ever moves to." Joe says, "I moved back here, didn't I?" "Under duress," Hal answers, and John, just digging into his food, chimes in, "Actually, we just got the contract for a hospital extension over in Carson City, so lunch is actually on me this time. But you're right, Hal, we'd go broke if we had to rely on local business." And he hears something in the background, sounding like the rev of a motorcycle, and the three of them turn to look at the road behind them and see that it's exactly that, a group of motorcyclists. "Must be some sort of biker meet nearby," John says. "They're going that speed through town? Somebody's gonna get hurt," Hal says, showing the sheer contrast between this version of him and the type that would go soaring through the sky at high speeds inside a fighter jet in the middle of nowhere for no reason. "Maybe we should call Guy," he says, and Joe interrupts. "If Guy's ears are working, he knows all about it. I'm not gonna call him." "Did you two have a fight?" Hal asks. "Feels like you've been avoiding him lately." "Guy wanted me to come back to the police department. He said if I stayed, I'd be chief by now. It turned into an argument. I said some things, but if he still doesn't understand why I quit, then maybe they needed saying. Whereas the rest of us still don't know why you came back," Hal says. "Was Coast City really that bad?" "Look, Hal, all of that is in the rear view mirror for me, okay? I'd like to keep it there." And he points at her with a fry. "Then why are you still wearing your wedding ring?" And she gives him a look of disappointment before John chimes in for her. "Sometimes the symbol remains when the reality has passed. I still keep my mother's wedding ring. She died years ago." And these motorcyclists come revving through again. Before this bike runs into a green wall and explodes on impact, sending blood flying everywhere and starting a fire. The three look back at the crash and immediately start running to help. "Call an ambulance," Hal says. "Someone needs to help that guy." He then takes a look at this green wall that's set up in the middle of the street and says, "What the hell? It's like there's a wall here, like a force field." "Maybe stop touching it, Hal," Joe says, concerned. "That green glow could be radiation for all we know." "Yeah, but that biker must have hit it at 100 miles an hour. Lord, he wasn't even wearing a helmet. His head, nothing's left of it." And we see this ring sitting on the ground, and Hal looks off into the distance as Joe still examines the wall. "Hey, someone's coming," and he sees the biker gang up ahead. His friends. "Maybe we can signal them," and we see these bikers stop and immediately turn around and head in the other direction. Hey, come back," Hal says. "They just turned around, rode off, like their buddy isn't dead on the road. Like they don't see anything strange at all," Joe says. "What is happening here?" John finally joins the conversation. "Maybe whatever it is doesn't like to be noticed. I'm not getting any cell reception." And Joe looks up. "I think it's a dome. Look, it curves around and up." and she points up to the sky. Guys, what is that? And we can see the famous Green Lantern shape floating up in the sky above them, as well as this massive alien being floating inside the Green Lantern above them. We then jump forward in time, where Hal is on his own, in the middle of the road, just speaking to himself. Be without fear, he says. Without fear. And he opens his eyes, before we hear some dialogue coming from the void. I don't know. It says, you are in the absence of light. I am the secret heart within every star. Be without fear. Hal Jordan, you must be without fear. And he continues walking on what looks to be an empty road before shoving a hand in his own face, stressed out, saying, I'm so scared. Showing that this is officially a completely different version of Hal Jordan than we're used to. A cop pulls up behind him, flashing his lights. Sir? Excuse me. Seems like an odd location for a Sunday stroll. Would you mind telling me what you're doing out here? Because you might make it to the state line on foot, but not much farther. Not in this heat. And Hal just stares at him, stammering. I was just... And the cop notices his hand in his pocket. You mind taking your hands out of your pockets for me, sir? And Hal immediately starts sweating and crying. Sir? The cop asks. Sir, I need you to answer me. What's in there? What do you have in your pocket? And Hal just closes his eyes, tears streaming down his face. You got drugs? A weapon? And the cop grows increasingly more concerned. Sir, I need you to answer me. Are you carrying a weapon right now? And without an answer again, he draws his gun. Fine, we'll do it this way. Lie down and place both your hands flat on the ground. Do it now. And Hal holds up one hand. No, wait, don't. I said now. Both hands. Please, my name is Hal Jordan. I'm from Evergreen. Sir, I will not ask again. Both hands out. And Hal just screaming and crying with his eyes closed says something happened there. His name was Abin Sur. Last warning, the cop says. Show me your hands right now. And he gets cut off and it cuts to black. Before Hal finally opens his eyes, tears still streaming down his face, and he walks off, his hand still in his pocket, and a hole in the ground with smoke coming out where the cop was standing. I'm sorry, Hal says. I'm so sorry. We then come across a diner called May and Moe's, where we can see pretty much everyone just having a normal time, talking amongst each other, waitresses conversing with the customers. Who's winning? A woman asks. Two guys at the counter. Lakers are up 6. I'm up $20. And another man says, game's not done, smartass. The Phoenix can still pull it all back. My luck's gotta change sometime. And suddenly the vibe changes when the bell of the front door rings and Hal Jordan enters silently. He goes up to the counter. Water, please. Sure, the waitress says. Have you been walking out there? Your car break down or something? Are you okay? And Hal sits down. No, something happened. And someone off panel says, hey! And the man starts smacking the TV. What happened to the game? Here, let me turn it up a little, the other man says, and we can hear the TV. What you're seeing is helicopter footage from Evergreen, Nevada, a small town about 15 miles from the California state line. This footage is live and unedited, and we see people at their booths just looking up at the TV in horror. And in this live footage, we can see this massive Green Lantern just sitting in the middle of a road in Evergreen. Mass destruction all around, fires all over, telephone poles knocked down, buildings smashed, just absolute chaos. This massive Green Lantern just sitting in the middle of the road, taking up a ton of space. But suddenly this live feed is interrupted as a woman on the news says, the destruction seems almost total, though no bodies have yet been recovered. We're trying to gather information on the exact nature of this object, but and she's handed a pile of papers and says, sorry, what? She then turns back to the camera. I've been informed we can't show you any more footage. An official statement is being prepared. We'll have more updates when we can. And the news feed cuts off. The waitress in the diner says, what was that? We just get nuked or something? Another man says, I don't think so. So what was it? Hal grips his water bottle tighter. What happened in Evergreen? And at the counter, Hal mumbles, Abin Sur. One of the men says, huh? What'd you say? His name was Abin Sur, Hal answers. He came from somewhere else. That symbol in the sky belongs to him. The waitress says, you were there? You were in Evergreen? That thing on the news, was that some kind of spaceship? And Hal starts crying again. He called it the Green Lantern. One of the men says, hey, start making sense, damn it. What lantern? What does that mean? One of the other waitresses says, hey, don't yell at the man. Whatever's going on, it's not his fault. And Hal, looking down, just says, yes, it is. It's all my fault. I made a mistake. I wanted to be the hero. And Abin Sur, he did something to me. He gave me something. Gave me a weapon. The waitress says, like a gun? And Hal looks up with dread. Worse. Much worse. She then starts reaching for the pistol that's under the counter. The other man says, what's in your pocket, son? And Hal looks at him with a 1,000-yard stare. On the highway, there was a cop. He asked the same question. And he starts getting up to leave. I should go. No, what happened to the cop? Did you do something? The man asks. I didn't do anything, Hal says. I couldn't, and the man grabs his arm that's in his pocket. Hey, stop, and Hal starts screaming, no! One of the other waitresses tries to get him to stop. Earl, don't. What is it? What do you have? A gun? A knife? Let me see it. And he grabs Hal's hand out of his pocket, and we see that his entire fist, leading all the way down to his wrist, has been covered in some sort of shadow, some absence of light, with black orbs floating around it. And almost reflexively, defensively, this shadow starts to take over the man Earl, like it's fighting back. It swarms his body, and Earl starts to disappear. The other people in the diner scream, and Hal says, it's the hand. I'm holding it back. It takes all I have to hold it back and keep it away from people, but I can't control it. It responds to danger. It responds to... And the other waitress shoots him in the chest before the entire diner goes haywire, with tentacles of the shadow crashing out of each window and lifting the building off the ground. No, Hal says. No, no, no. He lifts up his shirt to see the wound. Oh God, I've been shot. And he sees the blood dripping down, before his arm in the shadow reflexively starts healing the wound, completely taking it over, and in a matter of seconds, the bullet hole is gone. Looking down at his hand in horror, Hal says, oh my God, you're not gonna let me die. And just then, the bell of the front door rings again, and a green light from off panel shines through before someone says, Hal? Hal Jordan? And right then and there, Jo steps into the diner with a signature Green Lantern glow about her, and she says, what happened to you? So just a perfect, intriguing first issue that really builds it up and has you asking questions like, what? Why? What is going on in this version of the Green Lantern universe? Like, how does any of this work? Why is Abin Sur giant? Why is the Green Lantern giant? What happened to Hal? What happened to Jo? Where's John? What happened in that time frame while they were in that dome? What is going to happen next? And it is genuinely such an exciting direction for this series, so let me know in the comments if you want me to continue this here on the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. This is such an amazing start, very well written. The intrigue and the mystery is there and very strong. I would say the only kind of gripe that I have really just comes down to personal preference, and that's the art. Not my favorite style. It's not for me. Not trying to dunk on anybody that worked on it. I think it works for the story. It's just not my favorite. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Maybe I'm the only one there, but yeah, not even that is necessarily bad. So just a great start all around, and I'm so excited to see what else this series has to offer and what else we're gonna see. Another great installment to the Absolute universe. I really enjoyed it. Let me know if you did down in the comments below. And yeah, that is the video. Thank you for watching.